moving on to a a little rabbit hole that I went down last week. This is a rabbit hole that has led me to my choice for Muppet of the month, and this Muppet is not so much a person or the person who made a comment that led me down this rabbit hole, but rather it is this whole mindset, this whole philosophy that I seem to have just stumbled upon. This is just astonishing, and it is quite rampant with Muppetry. I'm talking about a comment that was made on an Archaeosoup video last week, or earlier this week rather, so, with regards to Sutton Hoo. It was a video about the archaeological discovery of the Sutton Hoo burial. King Raedwold, a Saxon king, I believe nominally Christian but with pagan sons, buried in an iconic mound and excavated to great furore. And
80 years ago next year.
80 years ago next year, and also with one of the, I think it's still the biggest boat burial discovered in Britain as well. Because we found lots of evidence of the nails and the other elements that hold the boat together. And crucially, amongst King Raedwold's burial goods was a series of items linked with dining, and also dining, but also other implements that look like dining implements, things like spoons, which you were saying are linked with baptismal rites.
The famous. There are many cultural influences within the Sutton Hoo burial assemblage. You have, for example, hanging bowls, cauldrons, which appear to be related to ritual feasting in the hall. Ideas of which appear in poems like Beowulf and the Norse sagas and so on. But you also have silver spoons that appear to have come from the Mediterranean, and they appear to be possibly related to conversion and baptism, because they carry the names Saulos, i.e. Saul, and Paulos, Paul, the two names of the Apostle Paul.
No, from Saul to Paul. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
And also, as well, there are also influences from Greek symposia, dining. There was clearly a desire to replicate an element of that Mediterranean lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And so in all these burial goods, these spoons in particular were mentioned in this comment that was made on the video. There's some writing on there, as you might expect. It's Greek text, or seemingly. But I had no idea when this person mentioned the spoons, and they mentioned something called Coelbren y Beirdd.
I'm pleased you said that.
Yeah, Coelbren y Beirdd, which is apparently the Bard's alphabet. And this sent me down this rabbit hole, because apparently these letters were not Greek at all. They were just similar to Greek, and they were part of this Bard's alphabet, a runic alphabet system created in the late 18th century by a literary forger. There's a connection to the
Hobby Lobby.
Museum of the Bible there, Hobby Lobby.
Yeah, the Bible, Hobby Lobby.
Edward Williams, best known under a pseudonym, sorry, and he claimed that this alphabet that he created, well, that it seems like he created, was linked with Iron Age Druids, and it was their writing system. And in particular, it was a writing system for bards and poets and Welsh legends and this kind of thing. Now, this in turn, not only, I mean, basically, no one of repute actually accepts that Coelbren y Beirdd is a real thing. It was made up by a forger. But there are people who run with that. They say, okay, so the Saxon spoons, the bardic alphabet, clearly, Raedwold is not a Saxon king. He's actually of the British lineage, and we are being told by the system to believe that Raedwold is German, because that props up the status quo of a German monarchy overriding a true British Celtic kingdom. And
we're talking about the Rogue Mail website, aren't we?
Well, we are. It's just an astonishing. So there's this whole. I found myself reading this blog post.
Yeah.
And there's a little quote here in this chap's blog, which I was amazed by it. Given the levels of control exerted over the culprit state monopolies of academia and the media by those agencies of the so-called establishment, this should come as no surprise. The sycophantic eulogising over the discovery of Dickie the Third's bones, King Richard III, may well be nothing less than another distraction by the beer-bread circus parade. It's amazing. I felt like Alice plummeting into this whole other world where everything from presumably the monarchy, the government, archaeologists were all complicit in trying to convince British people that somehow there's a Germanic royal legacy that we need to kowtow to. This is amazing. This is amazing. Now, it should be stated, just a couple of things, I don't want to over egg their influence. They have a total of 713 likes on Facebook. Not the biggest page in the world. And also as well, they're willfully ignoring the fact that no one actually does claim that Sutton Hoo is related to Queen Elizabeth II.
No.
It is amazing. And I mean, what do you make of this?
We've covered the misuse of and the misunderstanding of history by the far right and the alt right and the incels and all the other acronyms and self-identified bullshit, groups who are generally upset about the nature about the state of the world in the past from the left and the right. I mean, the members of the Labour Party NEC failing to Google the fact that somebody they were retweeting was a Holocaust denier, that kind of thing. I mean, I think it's barking. In a phrase, and this at least is less overtly pushing a political agenda rather than just a paranoid agenda, which maybe also has some kind of possibly commercial angle. Because I'm quoting from further down the website. This is talking about King Arthur and the remains of King Arthur.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to say that the two gentlemen who are associated with this particular website, called Alan Wilson and Baron Blackett, intellectual muscularity and spirited endurance, whatever that means. There were actually two. The website says there were actually two King Arthurs that existed, and whose lives are recorded in a variety of sources on papyrus, manuscript in stone, engraved in copper, chronicled in accounts from contemporaries in Ireland, France, and other parts of Europe. The second Arthur's remains apparently lie under St. Peter's Church, owned by Wilson.
Of course.
So, obviously, if he does own a church under which King Arthur is lying, and he wasn't dug up at Glastonbury in the 1170s by the monks, then
it says here to suggest the establishment historians have attempted to discredit W&B's masterly work is to understate the case. As recently as 2011, an attempt was made to kill them when an incendiary device was detonated in Baron Blackett's bedroom in Newcastle. Really? The crime was reported to the police along with forensic evidence of how the fire was triggered, but not surprisingly, given the spineless, treacherous and bovine corporate nature of the Keystone cops, they did F all about it. This is an astonishing place that I found myself, and I mean, I will share the link. People can read it. That's fine, but it's just amazing. Also,
there is one telltale down here which does make me wonder, or it is cause for concern in terms of alt-right shorthand, because there's another paragraph here. We're having a laugh at this. It as I say, it does appear to be barking. It is absolutely willfully contrarian.
Yeah,
and that's fine. It's
well, also in terms of tone, it varies wildly from pseudo-academic to personal ramble.
Absolutely.
With swear words and stuff.
Exactly. But I'd say two things really, and perhaps just in conclusion on this, we're not giving this perhaps any more coverage than it deserves, and certainly the kind of coverage it deserves. But
No.
there's one piece of shorthand which does concern me, and another paragraph on the front page of this website. It's a body of work, I'm quoting here, it's a body of work whose relevance and quality can be directly linked to the aforementioned Dick dug up in Leicester, the fake claims of the houses of Rothschild and Windsor to the illusory crown, and the current machinations unfolding in the Crimea, from whence it would appear that the name Cymru originates. So that reference to the houses of Rothschild,
Yeah.
that's an alt-right anti-Semitic trope.
Yeah. Well, there's that, and also as well, I'd just like to highlight that they don't know how to spell Cymro, by the way. So the origins of the Cymro, otherwise known as the ancient Britons, they spelt it Cymru, R-I, which even actually in Welsh, that's the wrong way to spell it. So
Right.
yeah, these guys are they're crazy. They're absolutely Muppets. But I was so amazed by this
Yeah.
that I simply had to just highlight it. And,
No, I mean, and I think it was interesting. I hadn't. I have to say, until you mentioned it to me when we were prepping this, I hadn't come across the Coelbren alphabet. But of course, that period in the 18th century, you also had the fakes from I think it was Thomas Chatterton, wasn't it, in the fake poems of Ossian.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the other
Well, and this was a time when prehistoric monuments in Britain were called Druidic monuments by nature.
absolutely being the most famous early
Yeah,
scholar.
yeah.
made-
And so,
yeah.
it's a heady mix of people with good intentions calling it that, but then people never letting that go, and it resulting in it. I suppose what fascinated me is that, as you say, it's a whole angle on on the use of history that and a whole direction that I've not quite come across before. As you say, we've come across what you might call alt-right, and there are other things like that, but this particular brand of homegrown Celticism is an interesting one, and I figure it was worth mentioning. Also, as well, I'm going to share in the links below as a related idea. I'm not going to go into great depth on it here, but an article from Post, a psychological website, psychologist website, which is talking about a study that shows that religious fundamentalists and dogmatic individuals are more likely to believe in fake news. Now, again, I'm not saying this isn't just religious people. This is religious fundamentalists and dogmatic individuals, and surely we're dealing with a level of dogma in this instance with these Muppets that it has a similar sort of addictive quality. This idea of being allowed into secret knowledge. We know things that the state doesn't want you to know. It's all related, and I'll just put it down there because I also came across that this month as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.